Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and I am your surprise. I'm transmitting tonight. Host, Rick. Well, let me explain really quickly what happened. So, in my normal day job, I work for a particularly large organization here in the United States. And I work in the networking department. Okay. So I'm an IT professional by trade. Well, occasionally things happen where we have specific times when we can make certain changes to the network, because obviously we don't want to affect the cost of doing business or production at any given point in time. And so what ends up happening is there are sometimes specific times where we are required to only make changes. I was scheduled to make a change tonight in about 1 hour from now, because of the fact that it was a scheduled window of opportunity to make that change. And anyway, so I was scheduled to do that in an hour. The unfortunate thing was, during the course of the week, we had several things pop up that caused certain individuals within the organization to be a little skittish about making that change. And so they've postponed it for 1 week. Now that means, of course, that next Saturday you will probably hear me say on Wednesday that I'm not going to broadcast on the following Saturday, should things look like they're going to line up. Okay. So, unfortunately, changes do happen. That's exactly what this is it's a change, but, changes do happen. And, so, I mean, anything, like I've always said to many, many people at many, many times, the only thing constant in this world is literally change. Change is the only thing that is consistent across the board. And so, that being said, just be prepared on Wednesday night, on this coming Wednesday, for me to announce that Saturday's show is going to be off. Now, I try and avoid these things as much as possible, but unfortunately I am not in 100% control sometimes of when things do occur. I try to work my schedule around the show because of course I love doing the show. I love all of you coming and listening, watching, streaming, interacting in the chat, on emails, things like that. And, I love doing this, and I want to continue doing this. And eventually I would like to see myself and see this channel grow big, to the point where I don't have to, do my other 9 to 5. And I call it a 9 to 5, but it's actually a lot more, excuse me, a lot more than that. So that is what happened. And so just so you're aware, again, my other paying position might interfere next Saturday, but I won't know that until at least next Wednesday. So I will be announcing that next Wednesday. I mean, this is called adulting. This is what is happening here. I mean, that's literally what's happening here, is being an adult. And speaking of adults, I had something occur. I had somebody make a comment to me on social media here recently that caused me to think a little bit about what's going on in today's world. And so I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But of course, I have to show tonight's tonight's drink. So tonight I am drinking Buffalo Trace for tonight's. I didn't want to do two brand new ones back to back, so we're just going to wait for the 1776 probably for Wednesday. Although I do know that the 1776 whiskey that I picked up is unfiltered, which is different than some of these other ones like this one here. It provides a little bit different taste, but this is Buffalo Trace. And, of course, it is in the running for, it is definitely in the top 5, of whiskeys that I personally like. And so, of course, I've got it on the rocks, the whiskey stones, that ironically my mother gave me. So my mom gave me these, and they are quite good. I like it, especially when they're frozen. So, which is why the glass is a little wet on the outside, because the glass itself was frozen. The whiskey stones are frozen. Of course, I like my whiskey cold. So there we go. All right. Gotta love that Buffalo Trace. Okay. So tonight's, affiliate, sponsor, whatever, is no real surprise here. Is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's IOTC, phonetically spelled India, Oscar, Tango, Charlie, .whiskeymusings.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. Check this thing out. It has 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather. It is constructed with paper that is water resistant, and look at that binding. It goes all the way through the book. The manufacturer has a 100-year warranty on this product for materials and defects in workmanship. If something goes wrong with this thing, you send it back to them. They will either fix it or replace it for free. These are rounded corners right here, and that goes with the rounded pages in here. These are nice, thick pages, nice, great keepsake item to pass down to your friends, loved ones. They can pass it down to generations passed on. And this, apparently, Buddy has told me that this is brandable. So you could actually brand this. He just put that in the chat. So, of course, this is Buddy tested and Buddy approved, along with, oh, and hey, don't forget, Father's Day is coming up. Thank you, Outlaw Dogs, for that. Father's Day is coming up. I bet your dad would love to get one of these books. He can fit it in a pocket. He can read about the Constitution, one of the greatest documents ever written for our founding. It is fantastic. This is just wonderful. So go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. It'll drop you right to the page to purchase just the Constitution book. And, you can, support the show by doing so. I also know that, there's a young Eagle Scout out there, my youngest, whiskey warrior, who is out there and has completed all of his civics badges on his way to become an Eagle Scout. I misrepresented. He's a Boy Scout on his way to becoming an Eagle Scout. And he is, I think about him quite a bit. I think about him as a youngster quite a bit, and I do appreciate the fact that he decided to grab that book. He's going to pass that down to his to his offspring if he so desires, I'm sure. But anyway, so go ahead and check out the Institute on the Constitution today. I'd appreciate that. All right. So let's go ahead, and before I get into my main topic for tonight, let's go ahead and take care of the Saturday segment of On This Day in American History. And of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, which is put out by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. Chock full, that's a thick book, chock full of all kinds of factoids and everything else that you want to know about America. Small little factoids and things like that. This one here for tonight, we are going to be talking about Betsy Ross. Tradition says, got to get a hold of the book here. All right. Tradition says that the first Stars and Stripes flag was the work of Betsy Ross, an upholsterer living in Philadelphia during the Revolutionary War. About June 1776, the 24-year-old widow, wow, already a widow at 24? Anyway, it was working in her shop on Arch Street when three gentlemen called. One was George Washington, Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. The other two were George Ross, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and uncle of Betsy's deceased husband, and Robert Morris, who was also a signer of the Declaration. Washington produced a rough sketch of the flag with 13 red and white stripes and 13 six-pointed stars, and asked Betsy if she could make a banner with that design. "I do not know, but I will try," she reportedly answered, then suggested changing the stars to 5 points rather than 6. She picked up a piece of cloth, folded it a few times, made one snip with her scissors, and out came a perfect 5-point star. The men agreed to the change, and the patriot Betsy Ross began the work of stitching together the first Stars and Stripes. Betsy Ross's grandson, William Canby, first made this story public in 1870. Betsy was clearly an upholsterer living in Philadelphia during the Revolution, and records show that she made flags for the Pennsylvanian Navy. But historians question the tale of whether Washington's visit and her making the first American flag, since they can find no evidence to back it up. Nevertheless, generations of Americans have loved the legend, and Betsy is fondly regarded as the mother of our flag. And for those of you that don't know, but the Betsy Ross flag is actually the one with the 13 stars in the circle, the 13 to represent the 13 colonies. That is the one that is affectionately known as the Betsy Ross flag. And I want one. I do not currently have one, but I want one, and I'm looking at doing that. And ironically, it's kind of interesting that came up in the American Patriots Almanac for tonight's On This Day in American History, because, as Outlaw Dogs has pointed out, I am championing, and I'm not going to say it's mine, but I am championing a American Pride Month hashtag out on Twitter for basically going and posting one picture per day, every day, for the entire month as the U.S. flag. And I'm doing that, and honestly, as a comment or responding to certain posts and things like that, I will put up hashtag American Pride Month and American Pride Month, and then throw up a picture of the American flag. And it's kind of fitting that we do that because of the fact that we are leading up to, of course, July 4th, which is the Independence Day celebration, where we celebrate our independence from England. And so I think it's awesome. I think it's actually pretty damn good. It's American Pride Month, hashtag American Pride Month, and then, of course, throw up a U.S. flag. It's not my idea, all right? Many other people have had it, but I am just championing it. Wow, that's a hell of a way to say it. But anyway, I am being a champion for that hashtag out on Twitter. So if you have Twitter, go and run out there. Otherwise, that's fine. You can do it anywhere. You could do it on any of your social media. If you don't have Twitter, that's cool. It's mainly just to bring attention to the American flag instead of the other one. And of course, I want to welcome Becky from Australia, and she goes ahead and posts that her flag is the Australian flag, not the rainbow-colored one. Well, that is cool. You can do that. You can. There's actually, believe it or not, I got tagged in Twitter also by a person who was from Germany, and they are doing something very similar over in Germany, where they are posting the German flag. And I can't pronounce the term that they used, but there is a hashtag for the German flag running around on Twitter as well. So it's not just America that's doing this. Apparently there are other places that are challenging the woke crowd when it comes to that. So, yeah. And speaking of challenging the woke crowd, well, let me just start this off. Actually, before I get into challenging the woke, let me just go on about this. So I was on social media, and I posted that, Joe Biden has been running around talking about how, and Kamala Harris has picked this up too, where they are talking about how they have created 13 million jobs. That somehow, magically speaking, that the government has totally created these 13 million jobs. And the thing about it is that what they neglect to let people know is the fact that 10 million, and I was actually corrected, believe it or not, I was corrected to say that it's closer to 11.8 million by somebody who has apparently done a heavy set of research for this, but that supposedly somewhere between 10 to 12 million jobs have actually come back from the artificial COVID shutdown. And that is to account for the large jump in jobs, and not anything with regarding to Joe Biden's policies. Now, that's been shown multiple occasions. If you are halfway cognizant and smart enough, you can go to the interwebs and find this thing. It's not hard. It's not a matter of dispute. We lost roughly 10 to 12 million jobs when we went into the artificial shutdown for COVID, and we came out of it, and then all of a sudden 12 million jobs came back because of the fact that we came out of COVID, the artificial, never done before shutdown. Now, the thing about it is that a lot of these people seem to want to drink the Kool-Aid that the Dems are kicking out, is the fact that, they want to believe that Biden is the savior, and that, again, we're looking at, the government being the savior. And when I posted that post, I got a response back. And the response basically stated, I'm going to paraphrase here. I'm not going to use the person's name, but I'm going to paraphrase. Basically said, shut up, child. The adults are in the room and they're talking. Now, I'll be honest, I was a little taken aback by that, only because of the fact that it seemed that was all that it was said. And there didn't seem to be any further comment about it. Just shut up, child. The adults in the room are talking. And I got to thinking about that. And I started to compare leftists and conservatives to kind of figure out who is the adult and who is the child. And here's what I came up with. Leftists want to believe in fantasy land. And by fantasy land, I'm talking about things like men can get pregnant. That you can just magically choose to no longer be anything that you biologically are, whether that's a female, male, human. You want to be like some unicorn or something. You want to have multiple personalities. All of these things are imaginary. We know this because we know biology. We know that men cannot get pregnant. Okay? Now, the other thing is that when you're talking about, so we have basically the left believes in imaginary things. The other thing that I thought about too is things like this whole idea with the debt ceiling that we just went through, which, by the way, Biden did sign the disaster. But anyway, when you hand your kid a credit card and that kid doesn't seem to understand how that credit card works. For an example, when you're handed a credit card and you're given a limit, let's just say $1,000, okay? That $1,000 is not your money. Unless, of course, it is a secured credit card, in which case, then, yeah, it is actually your money. But in terms of an unsecured credit card, okay, that's not your money. That is a representation of a loan that you are required to pay back with a certain amount of interest. Now, currently, because of our interest rates and everything else, it's running somewhere in the realm of 21 to 25%. But this is the difference between a child and an adult. An adult actually understands that when you borrow money, you need to pay it back. Hence the whole student loan fiasco. You know, the leftists want the student loan to be forgiven. Well, where is that money going to go? I mean, again, here we're talking about a child thought. Oh, and I guess I've been corrected. Apparently it's around 29%. Well, that tells you I haven't, that tells you I haven't looked at my credit card statement recently. But the point is that, you know, again, you're looking at just magically absolving a loan. That's a child thought. That's not an adult. An adult who lives in reality knows and understands that you have to pay that money back. A child seems to believe that you can just magically make up money, that the government can just hand you things for free, that the government is the all-seeing and all-knowing thing that can just magically create this stuff, that just because they print money means that you, as the American people, can gain benefit by this. Well, that's a child's thought. A child would think that way, would think that you could just magically create money out of nothing. And an adult knows, conservative knows, that that money has to come from somewhere, that government does not produce anything. And that it cannot give to one person what it doesn't take from somebody else. You can't just magically create value on something. That's child thinking. A child also thinks that, well, I exist. Therefore, I deserve things like food, shelter, clothing, that iPhone. I deserve a car just because I exist. And most often, children are given that because of their loving parents, their doting parents. They're trying to hand and give them everything that they themselves didn't have. I know that was, often the case in my particular case with my two children. I want them to have a better life than I did. But that's child thinking, that just because I exist, I deserve these things. An adult knows that it takes hard work. An adult knows, a conservative knows, that it takes an exchange of goods and services in order to create that value, to be able to go and purchase the things that you want. A child does not grasp that concept. A child goes around and thinks that government can take care of me, just like my parents did. That all I have to do is sit in my basement and play games, video games all day long, and things like food and all of that stuff will just magically show up because government takes care of me, just like my parents did. Well, an adult knows that it took an exchange of your work somewhere in order to create the money that is in the bank account to be able to pay for those things, to be able to pay for the food that comes. And not only that, but also to have to prepare the food, to cook the food. A lot of children these days, which the COVID shutdown kind of surprised me. Just on this note, the COVID shutdown surprised me how much processed boxed food was completely cleared out at the grocery store. And yet raw materials such as fruits, vegetables, things like rice, and some packaged pastas, meat, potatoes, those kinds of things were all kind of left alone. And when you walked through and went through all of the aisles that had all of the box foods, the hamburger helpers, the macaroni and cheese, the TV dinners, they were all just raked clean. And that's the difference between an adult who knows how to take these raw materials and raw foods and process them in order to create a meal for them. Children do not know how to do that. Children are lucky to understand how to run a microwave in order to get microwave popcorn or something like that. We are dealing with, in terms of the leftist mentality, we are dealing with children. Children. And their mentality, when they don't get their way, what do? They sit down and they scream and they throw a temper tantrum. They call you names. They drop right into a childlike behavior. Psychologically, that's how they're reacting. And the adults in the room, unfortunately, in some cases, haven't given these children structure and discipline in order to be able to understand that they can't do these kinds of things, especially in public. Childlike mentality in the leftists' world. They don't understand complex concepts. They definitely do not understand science and biology, which has been around for thousands of years. And whenever you look at them online, or whenever you look at replies in social media, things like, well, Elon Musk spent $44 billion and he could, or 300 and some odd $1 billion, and he could hand $1 billion out to every single man, woman, and child. And you look at that and you're scratching your head going, mathematically, that doesn't work. Because they don't understand mathematics, the adult style of mathematics. When my kids were younger, they thought that I just walked up to the wall in the bank to the ATM machine. I just punched in some numbers and magically money appeared. And that was how we got money. And what they didn't grasp was the hours of the day that I spent at my normal job in order to be able to get that money. And so this is essentially what we're dealing with here, folks. The leftists have 100% a childlike mentality in everything that they do, whether it's talking about socialism, Marxism, taking down the man, being against authority, when they throw their temper tantrums in the case of Antifa and all of these things, when they think that just because they exist, they deserve a six-figure salary. All of these things are literally the mindset of a child. Literally the mindset of a child. And if you look at the demographics of when people transfer from being a Democrat voter in general, okay, from being a Democrat voter into a conservative Republican voter, you'll notice that the cutoff seems to be right around the age of 30, 35, roughly. And I'm using a rough number. I don't know exact ages, okay? But they basically, it's when you're in your young teens and in your 20s that you think in a socialistic mentality, in the mentality that you deal with in terms of the leftist mentality. Those are the ages. So when they talk about things like the, millennial crowd, which is right now roughly in the 30s, they're starting to transfer. When they talk about Gen Z, those are the ones that are in the 20s. And this is reflected clearly through social media, that they don't understand complex concepts, complex situations, and they cannot grasp the adulting in the room. Now, my theory, and it's roughly proven by science, but my theory basically is that the frontal lobe, which is where all of the reason and logic and being able to break down concepts, complex concepts in a reasonable fashion, doesn't actually fully develop until somewhere in the ages of 25 to 27, generally speaking. Some people it develops faster, other people it develops slower. But somewhere in that time frame is where you'll see a shift, even within their relationships, within their attitudes, within the way that they actually interact with other people, their tolerance levels, their ability to actually make conscientious decisions. It will all happen right at the late 20s to early 30s, somewhere in there. So we're dealing with a bunch of people, when we're talking about leftists, we're dealing with a bunch of people who literally either have not grown a frontal lobe at all, or very little of one, and we're dealing with childlike mentality. That's what we're dealing with here, folks. Conservatives are the adults in the room. And I'm not just talking about, Republicans in particular, because literally Republicans in some cases are still childlike. I mean, how anybody could have passed this debt ceiling bill is beyond me. But they went ahead and did it anyway, because of course, there's other forces at play, by the way, which make this even more complicated. But they literally, the leftists in both parties, or anybody who considers themselves in dealing with a leftist, they literally are childlike. Just watch them. Just watch how they interact with others. Watch how they react to you if you're on social media, or even just watch them on the news when they don't get their way. They throw temper tantrums. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to give a couple of shout outs before I move on. First of all, I see over on Rumble, Kim Long 0101 is the username, saying that this is the first time watching. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I do appreciate that. Obviously, if you like the program, please feel free to follow me on Rumble since you're already there. Also, I need to do a shout out to a young man who I know listens to me on Spotify. His name is Preston. He's out in Goodyear, Arizona. So Preston, thank you very much for listening to the program and hanging on. And he is well, I'm not going to go any further than that. But he is a very nice young man. I do appreciate him for listening. I do appreciate all young people, and actually I appreciate everybody, because that's the way it's because of you that this program exists. It's because of you that this program grows. And it's because of you that I drive myself, to make the next program better than the last. And that is definitely my purpose in life, is to make this entertaining and educational at the same time. And apparently Outlaw Dogs, who is a big fan of the show over on Rumble, one of the actual Outlaw Dogs, he's been a highlight here with the Pet of the Week that I do on Wednesdays. Billy the kid is apparently not feeling well and not eating. So let's hope that Billy gains his appetite back, and that kind of thing. So all right. So as you all know, if you've been watching this program, YouTube, I love YouTube. I love my YouTube watchers. There's about 112 over there that I do appreciate. But here's the thing. YouTube has given me some strikes. And they've actually removed some of my content. Well, the reason why they removed my content, of course, is because of the fact that I have said multiple times, and I will continue to say, that the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop was the single most nationwide factor in the 2020 election. Now, I have said that. I've proven it. I've shown polls that have been taken that over 16% of the respondents would have changed their vote had they known about the Hunter Biden laptop story. And that, of course, because Joe Biden only gained 4% of the popular vote in order to be able to gain the Electoral College votes, that would have been 4 times. We extrapolate those numbers out. That would have been 4 times, and we probably would not have Joe Biden today. And I mean, outside of any of the other stuff, okay, so there's a bunch of other things that could have caused some definite issues. But that I identify and I believe is the single most impactful from a countrywide perspective, the single most impactful story that is unraveling as we watch and see even today. Speaking of the Hunter Biden laptop, there's apparently a website that has dumped thousands of his photos online I'm not going to go over and see them because I'm not really into looking at Hunter Biden in various stages of disrobing. But apparently there was a website that dumped thousands of his photos, some of which are showing things that potentially could put him into the child porn industry. But anyway, back to my whole point about YouTube. So YouTube apparently, let me go ahead and bring this up. And YouTube apparently now is reversing their policy and will now allow election fraud claims. Now, the policy was initially established by YouTube in December of 2020 after the presidential election. Now, I have had, like I said, a couple of videos taken out. In fact, I have had some strikes against me for those videos. And I told Mrs. Whiskey today, I was like, yeah, YouTube reversed its policy. I wonder if I should go and post them back up there, post my videos back up. And I am definitely thinking about it. So don't be surprised if you're following me on YouTube, if you see new videos pop up. They're not new. They're just re-uploads of past episodes that have been removed. But in the piece, the Post-Millennial here, YouTube has announced a reversal of its election integrity policy, stating that it will now leave up content that makes claims of fraud, errors, or glitches in elections, including the much debated 2020 presidential election and previous U.S. elections. The company confirmed the decision to Axios on Friday, emphasizing that maintaining the policy may hinder political speech without effectively reducing the risk of real-world harm or violence. The policy was initially established by YouTube in December of 2020 after the much-contested 2020 election. However, with the changed landscape and the 2024 campaigns well underway, the company acknowledges the need to reevaluate the effects of the policy. During a recent CNN town hall, Trump actually said that he would suspend talk about the election fraud unless he sees election fraud. Okay. Which is fine. So a statement from YouTube said, 2 years, tens of thousands of video removals, and one election cycle later, we realized it was time to reevaluate the effects of this policy in today's changed landscape. With that in mind, and the 2024 campaigns well underway, we will stop removing content that advances false claims that widespread fraud, errors, or glitches occurred in the 2020 and other past U.S. presidential elections. The rest of our election misinformation policies remain in place, including those that disallow content aiming to mislead voters about the time, place, means, or eligibility requirements for voting, false claims that could materially discourage voting, including those disputing the validity of voting by mail, and content that encourages others to interfere with the democratic processes, the statement continued. Although YouTube has stated that it has carefully deliberated this change, it did not provide specific examples of the factors or instances considered in making the determination. The platform plans to release more details about its approach to the 2024 election in the coming months. The revised policy, which takes effect immediately, does not affect YouTube's other rules concerning misinformation. Content that misleads voters about voting requirements, discourages voting, or incites interference with the democratic processes will continue to be subject to removal. So, again, I'm planning on putting those videos back up. And I honestly, I think I'm going to maybe potentially dispute the community strikes that I have against me for that. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I thought that was kind of curious. I actually think that part of this, believe it or not, is part of this, I think, has to deal with the fact that Rumble has been making such a big splash and cutting into some of YouTube's distribution. So yeah, I'm really, really hoping that that's the case. And I'm looking at the chat here, and it looks like I have some congratulations I need to push out over on Rumble. Let's see what is going on here. So it looks like Z, who is Bam's daughter Z, has graduated from cosmetology school. If I recall correctly, I think last week you were talking about, Z was talking about going and doing finals week. At least that's the last that I remember. But anyway, Z, congratulations. Congratulations for that. It's always satisfying to come out of an education, with an education and a degree after a course, or a structure like that. And also, yeah, I Outlaw Dogs, I do see, but I'm certainly, yeah, I that individual has interacted with me on Twitter in the past. So yeah, thank you for coming. Interesting screen name. Salty Zipper Tits. Anyway, all right. So, anyway, I'm sorry. I just had to. Sometimes I got to crack myself up. Anyway, okay. So now for some serious, we're talking about, and we're talking about, excuse me for a second. I thought, we're talking about, banning policies and things like that. Well, another thing that YouTube was banning over was, of course, I'm sorry, the chat's just going nuts over here because I said the name. Even though I said I wasn't going to say it, I said it anyway. But sometimes you just got to create your own entertainment. Anyway, so, one of the things that, of course, the leftist run programs have all, or platforms have all been going after is COVID misinformation. And anything dealing with the vax and so on and so forth. So anyway, this popped, and I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to be honest with you. Okay. I do not know for sure if this is true. However, there's been enough movement about it that I think there might be something, to it. And so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that I don't know this for certain. However, it does seem a little weird that, it does seem a little weird that we haven't seen this individual. Normally I don't talk about celebrities that much. But I do need to bring this up just because it happens to be sort of interesting. Apparently, the Hollywood star Jamie Foxx, and I've seen him in a few some of his movies and things like that. Certainly not what I would consider a great fan of him, but he's a decent actor. He's a decent comedian, and if I happen to see him in a movie or two, then I'm okay with it. It's not like it's that big of a deal, but, reportedly he has had some health issues here recently. And initially it had something to do with a potential stroke. But now it looks like it is potentially a side effect of the COVID vaccine. And the reports that are coming out have to deal with the fact that he is left partially paralyzed and blind after this shot, the COVID shot. Now, again, keep in mind, he, according to the piece here, he experienced a mystery illness on April 11th, which forced him to leave the set of his movie Back in Action. and he's been out of the public eye ever since. And this is what I'm talking about. This has not been confirmed, but it just seems a little weird that he hasn't been out there. Now, supposedly his daughter has been saying that he's recovering, he's communicating, that everything is fine. And honestly, I'm going to be completely open and honest with you folks that if he is, that's great. Thank God that he is not permanently harmed with all of this. And it would be really nice to see him recover from whatever his illness actually was. And if it isn't true, or if it is true, then, again, God help him for that. Well, this article kind of went also. Now, I know that there's a lot of information out there that's running around. There's a bunch of information that's running around about the COVID vaccinations, so on and so forth. And I've said it before on this program that the Epoch Times has done an incredible job at putting out several articles that deal with what I would consider closeness of the truth about this thing. But apparently there was a new study that just came out that repeated vaccinations actually weakens the immune system. And this is part of the problem that we have with this, is the fact that we have so many we have so little longitudinal information on this vaccine. In fact, that was one of the reasons why I myself chose to not get the vaccine and advocated to not get the vaccine for my family. Now, again, to be 100% clear, I have I have a family relative, my mother, who is up in age. She is up in years. I do fully and wholeheartedly believe that she was at a much higher risk to get the shot, or to get the vaccine, to get COVID, to get the virus. And so for her to have gone and gotten the shot, it was perfect. Okay. But at the same time, though, looking at the information that we had available at the time, things like getting children under the age of 18 vaccinated seemed a bit odd to me because of the actual mortality and infection rates that were coming out from various sources with regards to younger people who were under the age of, let's say, 30. And so I want to be clear about this. This was an unknown virus. In the beginning, there was a lot of stuff running around because nobody knew what we were dealing with. But after the first 3 months, even after the first 6 months, there were things that started to come out that concerned people who were actually paying attention. And so one of the things that is obviously, I mean, when we're dealing with things like the masking, I mean, the whole masking and the 6-foot rule and all of those other things that were coming out that were severely questionable. And each person had to make their own decision. I mean, Dan Bongino made his decision. He went and got the shot because he was at a risk for cancer and that kind of stuff. He has since said that he regrets it now. But that being said, keep in mind that that we have to look at things with the lens of hindsight is better than foresight. So I'm not blaming anyone for the things that they did during the pandemic. However, that being said, this does cause for a bit of concern, especially when you're dealing with states like mine, where I live. They are still advocating that you get your boosters. And so you see this kind of a study and it kind of makes you wonder what's going on. Well, according to the piece and according to the study, repeated COVID-19 vaccination weakens the immune system, potentially making people susceptible to life-threatening conditions such as cancer, according to a new study. Multiple doses of the Pfizer or Moderna COVID-19 vaccines lead to higher levels of antibodies called IgG4, which can provide a protective effect. That's essentially what a vaccine is supposed to do. Okay. However, a growing body of evidence indicates that the abnormally high levels of the immunoglobulin subclass actually make the immune system more susceptible to the COVID-19 spike protein in the vaccines, researchers said in the paper. They pointed to experiments performed on mice that found multiple boosters on top of the initial COVID-19 vaccine significantly decreased protection against both the Delta and Omicron virus variants, and testing that found that they spike in the IgG4 levels after repeated Pfizer vaccination, suggesting immune exhaustion. Studies have detected higher levels of IgG4 in people who died with COVID-19 when compared to those who recovered, and linked the levels with another known determinant of COVID-19 related mortality, the researchers also noted. A review of the literature also showed that vaccines against HIV, malaria, and pertussis also induce the production of IgG4. In some, so this is coming from the authors of the paper, in some COVID-19 epidemiology, this is going to be hard for me to say. Okay, in some COVID-19 epidemiological studies, there we go, finally got it out, cited in our work, plus the failure of HIV, malaria, and pertussis vaccines constitute irrefutable evidence demonstrating that an increase in IgG4 levels impair immune system responses. And that was a statement by Alberto Rubio Casillas, a researcher with the biological laboratory at the University of Guadalajara in Mexico. And he is one of the authors of the new paper. So here's the thing, folks. You know, again, if you took it, you did so, you had your reasons. Hopefully you did it as a fully educated individual and not as just succumbing to peer pressure. But here's the thing too, is that there's more information coming out about this thing than what the mainstream media is reporting. And I highly recommend that, if nothing else, just go over to the Epoch Times and take a look at some of the pieces that are out there. Use them as let's say a antithesis against the idea of using the COVID vaccines and continuing things with the COVID vaccines. There is some scary stuff going on about this. And realistically, I'm concerned and a little, it's going to have to be something that's going to have to be watched, because of the fact that the vaccine itself, has some challenges here. And the speed, you know what? You can sit here and blame Trump all day because he's the one that took away the restrictions and the red tape. And I'm fine with that, because of the fact that at the time, Trump was dealing with something that he had never dealt with. He went ahead and believed Dr. Fauci. Fauci has now been shown that he is deep in some challenges with this thing. And so there are some serious problems that could develop because of this. I know some people who have had the vaccine who are experiencing symptoms of things that they historically haven't in the past. And so, there is so much that we don't know about this thing. And I sincerely pray for all of those people who took it, whether they were forced to or whether they, whatever. That sometimes you had no other choice. And, I'm still maintaining it's going to be interesting to see in about 10 years all of the lawyers' ads that come on TV, that if you've gone and you've gone and gotten the shot for whatever reason and so on and so forth. Because remember, even though the Moderna and Pfizer and the rest of them got immunity, they only got immunity if they were not, they essentially didn't specifically cover things up, which we already know there's some evidence that maybe that they covered things up. So yeah, anyway. Also, as a side note, not that it really matters, but the whole Johnson & Johnson vaccine that came out that was a alternative to the mRNA, the Pfizer and Moderna one. Well, apparently the FDA has revoked the authorization for that, mainly just at the request of Johnson & Johnson and Janssen, who is the one ahead of it. It's nothing special, folks. It's really not. And it's nothing to get all like, oh my gosh, see? No, It's simply because the demand for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine dropped after they determined that it was linked to certain health conditions. They took it off the market. The demand has gone down, the supply is gone, and so it's nothing major. But I did want to bring that to you because because of the fact we were talking about it. All right. So of course this month, so we're going to make a segue here. So of course, this month is Pride Month, and I've already talked to you about my goal of making the American flag, American Pride Month, fly in social media places. One thing that of course has come along with this, which I find kind of interesting, there's actually an account, on Twitter that I went and followed. I'm kind of surprised. But I went and followed, and it had to deal with, the account name on Twitter is Gays Against Groomers. And they are a group that is basically saying that they want to get away from those who are trying to groom children. For an example, the whole drag queen story hour, the whole idea of transing the kids, and advocating for having young children under adult age go and do these transgender surgeries and take these puberty blockers and so on and so forth. Well, there's a reason why, and honestly, I mean, I've seen some photos supposedly of surgeries, like of girls that are trying to turn into boys and getting a reconstructed penis. And believe me, these things are, they're pretty disgusting. I can't even imagine somebody going through this. It's not reversible. Okay. It is literally not reversible. And regardless of what anybody says, it is not reversible. These things, these surgeries are not something that you can just change your mind on tomorrow and get everything put back. These are some serious surgeries. And, it's, I don't understand it, but for whatever reason, the mainstream media, the Biden administration, our government is pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And so when I saw this article pop, I had to put it in here. Mainly just because of the fact that, just like with abortion, there's a lot of leftists out there that believe that abortion past the first trimester, that there is a majority of people that are are willing to do that, are willing to get laws for that. And that's not the case. Reality is, again, showing up and is much more factual than fiction. And this is where I'm going with this whole idea of, again, children versus adults. Adults understand a lot of these things. And so that's why you're seeing things like the whole Bud Light thing. You're seeing things like the whole Target thing. You're seeing like the idea of Disney and how Disney is going down. Because of the fact that they are attempting to target not full-grown adults, which, again, just to be 100% clear, you become a full-grown adult, you become 18 years old, you decide to live your life the way you see fit. I'm okay with that. You go ahead and do whatever it is that you're going to do. Now, bringing me into it and trying to drag me into whatever it is that you're doing, if it turns out to be something, fantasy-wise, then no, I'm not just going to jump in with both feet into the pool. It's not going to happen. But at the same time, as an adult, you have a right to live your life the way you want to live it. As long as you keep paying for things and that kind of stuff, I don't care. Like I've told my kids, the minute you become an adult and you start making your own money, my opinion of what you are doing, if you were to ask me, that's something else. But I'm certainly not going to go out of my way and say, hey, child of mine, you're doing all this stuff, you got to stop, because I can't. I'm not paying for it. That's your money. You've decided to do what you want with it. That is entirely up to you. And I am perfectly fine with that. I may disagree with your choice, but it's not mine to make. And as long as you're not affecting me personally, then all bets are off. And that's my philosophy that pretty much boils down to just about anything, including things like abortion. It's the same kind of thing. Now, the only stipulation to that is, of course, I don't want government involved either. So, but anyway, but the thing, I kind of went off on a tangent here, but to bring this kind of back around is the fact that, I don't think these people truly understand that what they're talking about is not the mainstream. They're trying to make it mainstream, but it's definitely not. And this is why. So this article popped in Red State, and this is based off a, let me see. It's a Ipsos poll. Is this Ipsos? No, Rasmussen Reports. Sorry. So Rasmussen Reports did a poll, and apparently they took a poll, and I'll show you a graphic here in a minute of the results. But apparently 2/3, roughly 71% of American adults agree with the statement that there are only two genders, male and female, including a predominance of 57% who strongly agree. Okay. 23% disagree, and 10% of those strongly disagree. And these findings have apparently just slightly changed from December of 2021, when Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling sparked the whole controversy by criticizing transgender ideology. Okay. So here's the graphic, and Rasmussen Reports went ahead and put it up on Twitter, but here's the graphic. Okay. And the question was, some states have recently passed legislation making it illegal to perform sex change surgery on minors. Do you approve or disapprove of such laws? Now, overall, there was 46% strongly approved, with 16% additional somewhat approving. So essentially what was being said there is, let's see, do my math real quick. We're looking at 62% are in the approval of that statement overall. Okay. 8% were not sure, 12% somewhat disapprove, and 18% strongly disapprove. So you're looking at roughly a 62% versus 30% differentiation here. Okay. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you the Republican one because that was the most, but the Democrat, and this is really the surprising. Okay. The Democrats had 37% strongly approve of passing legislation making it illegal to perform sex change surgery on minors, with an additional 19% somewhat approving. So again, quick math, we're talking 56% of Democrats. So that's a majority of Democrats that have decided that they actually support legislation making it illegal to perform sex change surgery on minors. Now, again, on this show, multiple times, I've said it before, once you turn 18, you want to pay for it yourself, you want to do that, that is entirely up to you, okay? But to go to the idea, and this is really the crux of where I have the challenge with this, is that if you go with the idea that anyone under 18, okay, cannot vote, anyone under 18 cannot sign a contract. Anyone under 18 cannot get a credit card. Anyone under 18 cannot buy a weapon. Anyone under 18 cannot join the service. So literally what we have done is we've basically said that 18 is the age of consent in most cases with just about anything. Now, I personally, in my mind, I am of the kind of thought process that all of these age limits should all be one age, whatever that age is, whether it's drinking, driving, well, maybe not driving, but drinking, weapons, being able to buy weapons, being able to sign a contract, being able to vote, all of that stuff should all be realistically one age. Now, I'm okay with it being 18. I'm good with that. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it being 21. I'm actually even fine with it being 25. I'm okay with that. Okay. But whatever the choice is, you can't go through and say, oh, well, you know what? You're an adult, but yet you can't do other things that an adult does, like drink. If you're 18 and you're considered a legal adult, why not allow him to drink? Well, there's scientific evidence that has been proven that shows that people under the age of 21, and even some at 21, have difficulties with dealing with things like drinking. And so that's the reason why the federal government decided that 21 would be the drinking age. Okay. So again, I'm just simply saying you can't sit here and tell me that you expect that a young person can make a choice, a life-altering, clearly irreversible decision in their life and be highly cognizant of what it is that they're doing at a young age. You just can't. And again, as I've pointed out, if you want to do this after 18, hey, you know what? God bless you. Go ahead. Do whatever you want to do, because that's the way you should be able to do it. And, back in the day, before I joined up, but back in the day, it used to be that if you were in the military, you could actually drink on base. They've since rescinded that now. You have to be whatever the age is in the whatever the age limit is in terms of the states, which most of them are 21. So yeah, you can't drink if you're in the service under the age of 21, which again, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, if you're an adult, you're an adult. You can do whatever an adult does. If there is evidence out there to prove otherwise, then raise the age of being an adult. raise the age of being an adult. But anyway, that I found that kind of amazing because, again, this is sort of one of those things that, once again, everybody, they're pushing an agenda. The left is pushing an agenda. They're like children. They want to get something specific, and they are pushing an agenda. They're going to push the boundaries until the adults basically say stop. And that's it. All right. So I've got a couple other things real quick here. Yeah, I see I'm about at a quarter after, so hopefully this won't take too long. But there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. One in particular, because again, this seems to be a huge, huge fight. Biden, of course, keeps touting the fact that wages are up, and the economy is going awesome, and so on and so forth. I've already told you that I have already been posting about the whole idea of at least 10 million of the jobs that he is claiming he created. He actually regained. He didn't create them, and so on and so forth. But this just came out, and this is one thing that he keeps talking about. He keeps talking about wages and how wages are up, and you're making more money today than what you have been in the past. Well, it's a lie. It's a complete, utter lie. And I'm getting, again, they're manipulating the data in order for it to look like he's doing something fabulous, and he's absolutely not. So the Biden Labor Department came out with a revision to the wage data, and the number actually went down, believe it or not. So this in the Daily Caller, although I've seen it in a couple other places, the Department of Labor and the Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor and Statistics, BLS, revised a wage growth estimate by a massive margin, showing that real wages actually declined in the fourth quarter of 2022. The agency reported this past Thursday. In March, the BLS previously reported a fourth quarter increase of 4.9% for the hourly compensation in non-farm businesses, but it updated it to a decrease of 0.7% on Thursday, according to its revised productivity and cost report. At the same time, hourly wages fell, inflation rose, leading to listen to this, a 4.7% decline in real hourly compensation, which takes into account consumer prices. So in other words, due to inflation, due to price increases, all of this crap that came in as soon as Joe Biden took the helm in, January of 2020, we have specifically lost 5%, close to 5% of our value of our wages. Okay? We've lost 5% in compensation. Okay? So for all of those leftist children out there who are sitting there and continually talking about how the economy is great and we've got all these jobs, you guys aren't looking at the right numbers. Just like typical, you're not thinking clearly. You are just taking whatever Kool-Aid is coming out of old Grandpa Joe's mouth, and you're just diving in and not paying attention. These people, I'm telling you, we're dealing with children. We are 100% dealing with children here. And it's time for the adults to actually stand up and take over. All right. So let's get to tonight's question for whiskey. And tonight's question for whiskey is actually kind of an interesting one. It's not the first time that I've heard this, but I went ahead and included it anyway, just because of the fact that it I have a bit of an announcement sort of to make for this. So this comes to me from Bonnie at Rumble. So Bonnie, thank you for the question. Hey, Whiskey. Can you do a series on the Constitution and the amendments? Do one show and explain what the Constitution means, and then detailed information about what the amendments mean and how they affect us all. Just thought young minds could use it during their time off of school, and also for us old people. You calling old there, Bonnie. Also for us old people could use a reminder. You are a great teacher. Oh, thank you. I do appreciate that. And I know we get off subject in the chat, but it is all in fun. Yeah, especially on your pantsless Wednesdays. All I see is everybody talking about how they're taking off their pants on Wednesdays. Jeez. Anyway, thank you, Bonnie. Well, thank you, Bonnie, for putting the question in. And I'm gonna be completely open. This isn't the first time. Daybreak 3 on Rumble has also contacted me and been like, hey, you need to get back to, talking about the Constitution. So you're not the only one who has said that. And I've also actually been thinking of that myself, because one of the things that helps people get views and channels get views are things like, well, they call them shorts over on YouTube. And if you've ever watched any of the main ones like Dan Bongino, Mark Levin, they all post clips of their shows. One of the things that they do, which I don't think has ever really been conducive to this show, because sometimes what I talk about is a little out of context. But the thing about it is that I've been seriously considering this, because if you're a longtime listener, I did mention and kind of tease, although it didn't get off the ground, doing a Constitution class. And unfortunately, I feel really bad about that. I did get a couple people who went and purchased textbooks from the Institute on the Constitution. The class never took off because we couldn't get a consensus on a day and a time. Plus, we didn't get a lot of interest. So I've been considering and thinking about this a lot. And so tonight, your question actually hit just right for the timing of this. So tonight, I want to announce a new segment, and I haven't quite figured out where this segment is going to fit. But here is the new segment. Here's the little cross screen so you can see it, or they call them stingers in the biz. But here's the stinger for the new segment, and it's called the Constitution Quarter. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 15 minutes of the 15 minutes of the podcast, or the time in the podcast, and I am going to devote it toward the Constitution and topics dealing with the Constitution. Like I said, I don't know specifically what night this might be. I may actually even do it every single program. I haven't quite figured that out yet. I'm still thinking about it. But it is coming. And I promise you it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be 15 minutes directly on the Constitution. It will be dealing with certain topics. And I'm going to try and incorporate things that are part of the Institute on the Constitution's Constitution 101 course as well, so that you can have some relational subject matter to jump from point to point. But that is one of the segments that I've been literally dying to do, and I just haven't quite figured it out. But I want to take that 15-minute segment and break it down so that I can create shorts out of it. And so I also am considering, and I'm thinking of doing this anyway, in conjunction with this, we'll be launching a new Constitution Quarter channel on Rumble that will feature specifically the Constitution Quarter segments for people to go and take a look at, and for people to go and listen to. And so, Yeah, so that will be coming soon. You do not need to sign up. This is going to be done all for free. And all you'll have to do is, of course, go to Rumble and take a look at the Constitution Quarter. I'm going to set up the channel hopefully soon. It'll probably be something odd. I don't know. It just depends on if I can actually call it the Constitution Quarter. We'll have to see, but that is coming. It is coming soon. And I think it's actually going to come in probably before the 4th of July, but at least by Independence Day. I keep calling it 4th of July. I hate that. It's Independence Day. It is Independence Day. So, yeah. Okay. And just for so Outlaw Dogs, yes, I did get my mail. I did get it. So let me just to satisfy her, I did get it. And I don't know if Outlaw Dogs is going to do this on a regular basis. We're kind of working out the licensing aspect of this. But she has made these pins that are the Whiskey Musings logo. They're buttons of the Whiskey Musings logo. And, so we're working that out. But anyway, so that, yes, I did get my mail. So thank you. All right. Whew. Wow. That has been one packed show. I see that we're coming up to the time off. So do me a favor. If you like the program, especially you, Kim Long 0101. But if you like the program, do me a favor and, head on over. If you're not watching me on Rumble, head on over to Rumble, sign up for an account. It's free. And do me a favor and sign up for an account. And then of course, follow the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. You can also catch me on Facebook and YouTube for now, as well as Twitter. I do all three. So I actually distribute in 4 places, audio or video wise. And I also do an audio only subject or an audio only push, out to places like Spotify and Google. So yeah, so there you go. And it looks like there are some people who are saying, oh, I'd love one of those pins. So I'll tell you what, I'm not necessarily going to pass them out now, but we'll definitely think about it. I'll figure out how to do it, here in the near future. I've also got some other things going on as well. Trying to set up a newsletter that people can go and subscribe to. It won't cost you anything. It'll just be, give me your email address and I'll be sending out stuff. I'm still trying to work that out. So yeah, we will see you on Wednesday right here on the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Have an excellent rest of your weekend. And we'll see you next time on the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings Broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.